So I'm sure you read the title and probably felt like that was an exaggeration or clickbait kind of title. But honestly, I do really feel that Nintendo's future does kind of hinge on, yes, the Zelda movie and just the Zelda 40th anniversary stuff. And I do want to talk about why that is, because that's not some hyperbole. That's just genuinely how I feel. And I'm not saying that to say that Nintendo's future is doomed if this fails, like they're going to go out of business, they're going to go bankrupt. But I'm saying it more in a sense of like where Nintendo goes from here and what we see, you know what I mean, just their future look like. And I do want to talk about that because I think the way, you know, we see this remake handled with Ocarina of Time, which I assume it's only going to be one remake. I doubt we get maybe, you know, Majora's Mask or Wind Waker on the Switch too, as well as just the movie. You know, I think a lot of the stuff going on with Nintendo really is going to come down to how the performance of both, you know, their remake and also the movie goes. So I want to get into that right now. So I saw the Super Mario Galaxy movie on Wednesday night, and it was one of those movies where, you know, obviously it was tailored for kids. I didn't think it was that great, but you could still go into the theater, turn your brain off, and have a good time. You know what I mean? There really was no plot. You know, I mean, I thought most of, if not all of the voice actors outside of Charlie Day and Brie Larson, I thought they were just okay. You know, I mean, I've never been like the biggest Glenn Powell fan. You know what I mean? I've had some movies where I enjoyed his performance a little bit, but, you know, I've never been crazy about him, so I wasn't blown away, and it felt like he was just talking in his regular voice. But it felt like nobody in the acting booth was really giving their all outside of the two that I named, you know, Charlie Day and Brie Larson. I do like, you know, Anya Taylor-Joy. I thought she was decent, but I feel like, you know, there wasn't enough Peach voice lines. There really wasn't too many. She was decent, though. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't understand why Benny Safdie was Bowser Jr. That made no sense to me, you know. And we're gonna just, well, I had to get my grievances out of the way before we just continue talking about the Zelda stuff. But I did want to talk about that before we get into the Zelda movie, because I think, you know, with all that said, the movie I didn't think was that good. You know, it was just like, hey, you like video game references, here you go. But I think this live action Zelda is gonna be a tougher tightrope, you know, to kind of walk on, because they can't say, oh, this was just tailored to kids. I think this is going to be a more mature movie, probably like a PG-13 film. And the thing is, Wes Ball has a very iffy resume. You know, the Maze Runner movies are terrible. I think they're horrible. I didn't like them when I was younger. I was a teenager when they came out. And even looking back on them, I'm not going to rewatch them in anticipation for the Zelda movie. They're probably still as bad as I thought they were. I will say, I believe it was Return to the Planet of the Apes, the one that came out 2 years ago now. Wes Ball did direct, and that was actually a very good movie. I did really enjoy that one. So I think, ultimately, you know, the more recent film that he put out was actually very good. So let's hope that, you know, the Zelda movie ends up being good, ends up working out, because, you know, I think obviously it's much easier to just look at what he did with the, you know, Planet of the Apes movie and say, like, okay, bet, like, he's got talent, he's got skill, you know what I mean? And I hope the Zelda movie, for, you know, just the sake of my enjoyment, is good, and all other Nintendo fans, because it's going to be a huge box office smash hit either way. You know what I mean? Like, the movie's going to succeed. Like, there's just the Zelda IP attached to the movie alone is going to make, you know what I mean, the film gross a ton of money. Like, you know, obviously it's not going to be intended for a younger audience. Will there still be teenagers and young kids that see it? Of course, they'll see it with their parents. But this is obviously a more mature film. Like I said, I'm sure it'll be a PG-13 movie. And yeah, I don't know how it's gonna do. I'm not holding my breath. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Let's hope it's good. I did like the castings. I felt like going with, you know, unknown actors was much better. You know, but who knows? Hopefully the, you know, two young actors that they have can shine in this, and really, you know, the movie ends up being a hit. Because like I said, Wes Ball has a very iffy resume. You know, I mean, ultimately his last film, which I believe the Planet of the Apes movie was his last film, that was very, very good. So let's just hope that, you know what I mean, like, the Zelda movie ends up being a hit. Now next, I do want to talk about the Ocarina of Time remake. I did touch on it and talk about it a bit in my last video, where I was just going over Nintendo's 2026 and stuff like that. But to me, I think, like, I think it's going to turn out being good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the studio that's remaking is going to do a good job. It's probably the best video game ever made, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's very hard to fail. Based on a lot of the stuff that we've seen, like the fact that this is going to have a huge budget behind it or a large budget, I mean, we don't know what that means, you know what I mean? In terms of what God League, we don't know what is considered large. Is this on the scale of a Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, or larger than, you know, you'll typically see with a remake, you know what I mean? Like, this is larger than, say, a Metroid Prime remake, which I would assume it is. You know, Zelda is going to obviously have more money put into it than Metroid Prime getting remade. But I look at that as, yeah, like they're going to pull out all the stops. It seems like Monolith Soft, based on just a lot of the stuff that we've seen, is going to be working on this game, and that's great. You know what I mean? That's probably the internal studio at Nintendo I would want doing this the most, and I think they're going to do a great job. You know what I mean? And I think what it comes down to is just the sales. I think this will sell well since there's not going to be another Zelda out there. We assume, you know what I mean, coming out this year. We assume it's just going to be Ocarina of Time. Now, I would love Wind Waker or, you know, Majora's Mask to also get remade, but I do think the sales of this game, you know what I mean, and also just kind of what they have internally going on in Nintendo in terms of, you know, the next mainline, the new 3D Zelda game, you know what I mean, that's going to play a factor in if we ever get that, or if we do get it on the Switch 2, because that might be a Switch 3 type deal, you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, I think easiest thing to do is just take the Wii U port and up-res it, you know what I mean, and kind of dress it up a bit nicer in terms of Wind Waker, you know, put that on the Switch 2. I don't, or even just the Switch 1 also, you know what I mean, but I don't think that's, like, too much of an ask, you know. Majora's Mask, I would probably ask for more of a, you know what I mean, game that's remade on the same level as, you know, Ocarina of Time. Obviously, most people look at Majora's Mask as just DLC, you know what I mean, for Ocarina of Time, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of how it was. It was Ocarina of Time was like the game that blew people away. Majora's Mask was the one that was viewed as DLC. There's many people that say this, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think, you know, hopefully we get both of those games, Wind Waker and Majora's Mask, remade. And I think really Nintendo's plans going forward in terms of, you know what I mean, their future and how they remake these games, I think is based on how this game sells. Like, if this game sells like hotcakes and is one of the best-selling Switch 2 games, and it sells the units, which they think it will in terms of consoles, yeah, like, I think you're going to see a lot more remakes in terms of Zelda, whether it's on the Switch 2 or even Switch 3, you know what I mean? I think, I think that's kind of goes without saying, and I think, yeah, like, we're 100%, I think, going to see that Zelda limited edition Switch 2, and I saw the report. I'm sure I can find it. I'll flash it up on the screen if I can. That apparently it's going to be, you know, similar to the Mario Kart World, you know, console where it's 500. You know what I mean? Because it comes with the game. The console is 500 and comes with the game. So, you know, I'm not surprised at that. But yeah, I am very excited for it. And I'm just waiting for the trailer in terms of the reveal for, you know, the system in the game, but as well as a Pro Controller. If we get a Ocarina of Time Pro Controller, I will try my best to get it, because trust me, I know how hard it is. You know, I didn't get the initial, like, allotment of the GameCube Switch 2 controller, and then when they did the restock, I believe. I got it in June. I got it before the console came out, so maybe I did get it, but I thought initially I couldn't get it that first day, and then I got it like a week later or however long later. But yeah, I mean, I'll try to get my hands on a Switch 2, you know, Pro Controller around Ocarina of Time if I can, though. And I did want to talk about just Nintendo's future in terms of other remakes. You know, like I said, I think this is going to sell well. I don't see why it wouldn't. It's Monolith Soft, you know, most likely behind it. It's a remake of quite arguably the greatest game of all time. It's got the Zelda IP attached to it. Like, it's going to sell well, you know what I mean? And it's probably going to be Nintendo's big holiday game, or at least one of their big holiday games. You know, we don't know what they got, you know, in the tank this year, but we assume Ocarina of Time will be the headline title for the, you know, winter season, for the holiday season. And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's going to sell well, and, you know, I don't think you can maybe put, say, a Star Fox or Metroid Prime or something like that on the same level in terms of, like, oh, like, because Zelda sold well, we'll make a Star Fox 64 remake or something like that, or Star Fox Adventure. But I think, you know, what Nate the Hate said in terms of, you know, just the fact they greenlit a new Star Fox game, which is super dope. I'm excited for that. You know, the fact there's also going to be a Super Metroid remake, you know, done by Mercury Steam, who obviously did Metroid Dread. Like, I think Nintendo is in a great place, and they need to look to their other franchises, you know. I feel like that you have some of those, you know, maybe franchise that are household names, and they did a great job of making Splatoon more of a household name, as that you know what I mean, has done a great job of selling and stuff like that on the, you know, Wii U, Switch 1, you know, and continuously just, you know, selling the Switch 1 copies on Switch 2. But, yeah, I mean, I would like if, you know what I mean, the kind of quote-unquote Nintendo heroes and characters that I grew up with, you know what I mean, as a kid, kind of got a bit more shine and they got the light that they deserve. You know, like, I'm very happy you're seeing a new Star Fox as a rumor. You know, rumors have suggested, you know, what Nate the Hate said in the leaks. You're seeing Super Metroid, which was a game I played with my uncle all the time as a kid. You know, you're seeing a remake of that. But I would love if there also was a new Kid Icarus game. You know, there was the rumors of that for years and nothing's come. So hopefully, you know, we do see that happen in the future. You know, I spoke in my last video about how I would love an F-Zero remake. You know, I mean, we got the, you know, F-Zero GX GameCube NSO, you know, version where you could play it emulated on the GameCube emulator app. So I don't know if you get a remake of that, but who knows, you know. Personally, like, I loved F-Zero GX, and I loved Kid Icarus, you know, and seeing Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS, I remember, like, loving that game and having the little thing you planted your, you know, DS in or 3DS in, you know, when I was playing that, you know, gosh, that was, what, 2011 or 2012, you know. So I don't know, I love, you know, both of those franchises, and I would love if, you know, Nintendo showed them love. And honestly, I think not only does the success of maybe some of their other remakes in the, you know, the top franchises like a Zelda, you know, kind of play into, okay, now we're going to get a little more, you know, testy, and we'll see what happens with a, you know, Star Fox remake or a new Star Fox game, a Metroid 2D remake, you know. But I think also, you know, how those, the 2D Metroid remake and the new Star Fox and stuff, how well they sell, that's going to just have a factor on, you know, if they do test a new Kid Icarus game, if they test the new F-Zero game. We saw F-Zero 99 a couple years ago, and that was a cute little fun game, you know what I mean, for NSO subscribers and stuff. I haven't played it in a minute, you know, but still, and just from, you know, how well Kirby Air Riders, which was kind of more of a niche title, you know, sold. It's sold over 1 million. I just saw the updated graphic the other day. I think it has 1.8 million it sold, or 1.5 million. I could be wrong, but I saw that graphic the other day, you know. So I would hope, you know, that they are going to start kind of testing the waters of their other franchises, and you see a new Kid Icarus game or a Kid Icarus remake. Maybe they bring Uprising to the Switch 2, you know, as a remaster, port, whatever, you know, and kind of like do what they have done with some of these other franchises where they make the buttons work, you know, on the Switch 2. And I don't know, but to me, I'm just hoping the remake of Ocarina of Time sells well, because I love that game. I was always a Majora's Mask and Wind Waker kid, but I would never deny the fact that Ocarina of Time is probably the best game ever made, you know. And yeah, man, I mean, I'm excited for it. And with that said, I think, yeah, like, Nintendo's future does hinge on this Zelda 40th anniversary. Of course, I'm not saying they're going to go bankrupt if it fails, and I don't think it's going to fail. But I think their direction in terms of how testy they get with bringing back some of their other franchises, doing remakes, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think, you know, I think it does kind of depend on the reception to the Zelda 40th anniversary and just what they decide to do, whether it's the movie, whether it's this or that, you know what I mean, in terms of the games and the remakes. You know, I don't know. So for me, I'm excited for Nintendo's future. I've always been a Nintendo kid, you know what I mean? That was just how I was growing up. And I'm excited to see, you know, if they bring back some of the, you know, iconic games that I grew up with. But I do want to know down below how you feel about Zelda's 40th anniversary. What do you want to see from the 40th anniversary, and how you think the movie's going to be? You know, I definitely could be a little too critical of films, you know what I mean? There was only 2 movies last year that I gave 5 stars on Letterboxd. It was Sinners and it was Hamnet, you know what I mean? So for me, like, I'm pretty critical when it comes to movies. Obviously, like I said, with the Mario movie, I understood it's a kid's movie, understand that, you know, that was a kid's movie and stuff. But you know, I want to know what you guys think the Zelda movie is going to end up looking like, how you think it's going to be when we get our first trailer, and just, you know, anything related to Zelda, the remakes, or anything down below. And yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video, you know, make sure to give it a like and just subscribe, as I got a pretty fun Xbox JRPG video, Xbox 360 JRPG video that I'm going to be putting out pretty soon. At least I expect to put it out soon, and I also got some more Nintendo content soon. So with that said, I appreciate everybody watching, and thank you so much. I am out. Peace.